that said, and it was Lions fans that were like,
Lions
we would
fans.
rather take Jameer at 12 again than we would Bijan. And I get to that point
Lions
as well.
fans.
And I get Flannel's point to where, he was like, Bijan's having a better season than Jameer. I get that. Like, I could see it. Like, when I spoke with some of these guys about it, when you break it down, like, yes, you can get that. Bijan, probably, if we're being honest, just as football guys, just watching film, breaking it down, Bijan's probably a better all-around player than Jameer Gibbs. Skill-wise, the way he is,
at this
he's
point in his
probably
career.
a better player. Now, when you're looking at stats, who's having a better year, who's in the right positions, that's where kind of I turn there. And when Flannel kind of went over that, I just want to give some context here and some stats. Flannel, you love the stats, so let's look at it here. Jameer Gibbs, 10 games this year, brother. 90 yards per game in 10 games. 90
Really?
yards per game, 10 games. Bijan Robinson, 12 games, 85 yards per game. He played 2 more games and had 85 yards per game. Yards per carry this year, Bijan Robinson, 4.8 yards per carry. Jameer Gibbs, 5.3 yards
Let's
per carry.
go.
In 2 less games, Jameer Gibbs, 5 touchdowns. Bijan Robinson, 6 touchdowns.
Wow.
And that's in 2 less games. And if you don't remember this last game, Jameer Gibbs ran the ball all the way up to the 1-yard line, and then they didn't reward him. They put D-Mont in. So Jameer Gibbs has a guy called David Montgomery, who's a bell cow back and has 10 touchdowns on the year. And Jameer Gibbs is still only 1 away from Bijan, which Bijan doesn't have that. He is that guy.
And you remember, Jameer Gibbs not only started the season slow, he didn't get many touches from the coaching staff.
Now, I have touches stats.
Also, but real quick, that Kansas City game, remember he should have had a touchdown. He slipped. I think it was in the first quarter.
Oh, that was brutal.
Like, that's could have been another one. But here we go, touches.
Now I have
snaps.
touches.
Yes.
Bijan Robinson, 194 touches on the year, 1,022 yards. Jameer Gibbs, he has 40 less touches than Bijan with 159, and he has 124 less yards.
Dirty to me, Booner.
If Jameer Gibbs got the amount of touches as Bijan got, he would have over 100 or over 200 more yards than Bijan Robinson right now. And the arguments that I kept getting today were, hey, but Bijan's in such a bad situation. He doesn't have the offensive line. He doesn't have the head coach. He doesn't have the weapons around him. He doesn't have a quarterback.
Whose fault
We're
is that?
talking about who's having a better season. It's not Jameer Gibbs' fault that he's in a better position.
Yeah.
If Bijan was in Jameer's position, yes, he might be putting up the same stats, if not more. But we're talking about stats. Who's having the better season so far this year? Jameer Gibbs, in less touches, 40 less touches in 2 less games, is averaging more yards per carry, more yards per game. He has the same amount of touchdowns, essentially, 1 off. To me, Broder, I think if we did a redraft right now, I'm going Jameer Gibbs again. And I'm taking him every single time. I think Jameer Gibbs is the guy to have on this team. He's a perfect fit with David Montgomery. You have these 2 guys for the next 3 years at least. You have Gibbs for at least 4 more years after this. To me, he's having a better season. I don't know what I haven't looked at the chat, how they feel about it, but I do believe truly that Jameer Gibbs right now has had I'm not saying he's a better player, but he has put up better numbers and he's had a better season. And I get the total yards. I get that. But if we're talking about the production while they're on the field, Jameer Gibbs has produced more than Bijan Robinson with more weapons around him.
Yeah. I'm not going to argue that Justin Herbert is a better quarterback than Jared Goff, but Jared Goff is having a better year and has a better MVP odds than Justin Herbert just because of how he's playing this year. Jameer Gibbs, he's done everything we could ask him for in a smaller sample size as Bijan. And I actually do think he's going to get more usage as we go down the stretch. Depending on how the games flow, how the Lions' record is the last 3-4 games, I do believe we're going to see more Jameer Gibbs as they try to not rest David Montgomery, but pace him for a playoff run, because they're gonna ride David Montgomery in that offensive line as far as they can. I'm not saying they're not going to use Jameer Gibbs, not going to ride him either, but I think we're going to see him get more snaps as a running back down the stretch. As long as we take care of business in some of these early games, Jameer Gibbs is going to get more, and just his ability to affect a game I know I don't want to talk negatively about Bijan because he's incredible and he can definitely affect a game and you got a game plan against him. But I'm trying to think of it from a defensive coordinator's perspective. How are you game planning against this team and then specifically this player? I have no idea where I'm ever going to see him on the field. Be running back in between the tackles, could be running back running the outside, slot, out wide. Like, there are so many things we haven't even seen. We haven't seen much of Jahmyr Gibbs in the slot.
And he's
and
slowly
that's all we
getting
talked
into it.
about before the season.
Yeah.
Like that, I think, this is totally my gut instinct. Think Ben Johnson, this offense, they're saving some of their best stuff for the playoffs or for when they really need it. Like, I'm talking JMO plays. I'm talking Jahmyr stuff. There's not tricks as in trick plays, but he's got some tricks up his sleeves.
I agree. Especially you have so many guys you can move around, put in different spots. And like you said, do you remember like about 4 or 5 weeks ago when Jahmyr Gibbs first started going off?
Yeah,
maybe 6 weeks ago. And we sat up here and had this conversation to where it was like, we've seen Jahmyr Gibbs make these plays in different ways when D-Mont was out. And then when D-Mont came back, we had the conversation to where we have not yet seen Ben Johnson use Jahmyr like he said he was going to in the offseason. When he said, this guy, he's going to be able to play many different positions. I'm going to use him in a bunch of different ways. We didn't see that yet, and we still really haven't. So that's, like you said, a whole nother side of the playbook that Ben Johnson is kind of holding on to and ready to go. A couple more stats, too, with this. And it looks like the chat is the majority on my end here when it comes to this.
It's a really good argument.
It is. And if you look at the start of the season, through weeks 1 through 3, Bijan Robinson, 63 touches, Broder. Through weeks 1 through 7, Jahmyr Gibbs, 73.
Wow.
73-63 in 4 more weeks.
Explosive.
So it's just Bijan was getting these opportunities all year long. Gibbs just started getting them within the last 5 or 6 weeks, 7 weeks. And now that he's getting them, he's starting to show what he is. And he's only, 120 yards away from Bijan?
Yeah.
With 5 weeks remaining. I would not be surprised, like I said earlier, if he catches him. I do have a couple graphics I want to throw up. Jalen, do you have the PFF Fantasy Football one here?
Yes, loading.
I do, and while you look for it, this comment by Answer 14, Gibbs is also a lunch pail. Do whatever it takes to win guy. He's quiet and deadly. Mike Hilton said Gibbs is more explosive as far as pure speed. There are things that they both do well, but Gibbs has some special traits. Go for it, Jalen.
Yeah, so I have 2 different graphics here, and these are fantasy football ones, but it puts stats in perspectives as well when you're looking at how a player's been performing throughout the year. Jahmyr Gibbs, 7 rushes gaining 20 or more yards. That is tied for first in the NFL. First in the NFL, brother, for 20-yard rushes. That is elite.
Wow.
That's explosive. That's what everyone thought Bijan Robinson was going to do. And guess what? Jahmyr Gibbs is the guy that's been doing that for the Detroit Lions.
Yes.
And then, Jalen, did you have that other graphic as well?
Yeah, I got it.
This one kind of puts in perspective where Jahmyr Gibbs is playing with D-Mont. Since David Montgomery has returned, Jahmyr Gibbs has been running back number 4 in fantasy football, and David Montgomery has been a running back number 7. And just look at those stats.
Wow.
14 receptions, 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, 65 fantasy points. This is
Best thing is they could switch roles at any given moment.
Yes.
D-Mont can catch the ball in the backfield. They're just their ability to use them in whatever way they want or the game dictates is so clutch. So clutch.
Yeah, and the fact that Gibbs is putting these numbers up with a guy like D-Mont there, and
This
at the
is
end
the
of the
vision.
day,
This is the path.
Amon-Ra St. Brown is the top. You have a top 5 wide receiver as well as a weapon.
You have a top 3, if not 1, tight end.
Am I wrong about this Jahmyr Gibbs Bijan thing? Someone please tell me I'm wrong.
I don't
Besides
think
the
so.
morning show.
I don't think you're wrong.
I can't wrap my head about it. I tried to explain it to them,
But we can understand how
We
someone
agree
could
to
have the other
disagree.
perspective. Like, we disagree with that, but it's not like an outrageous statement for someone to think Bijan's better than Gibbs, right?
no, and I just think, like, yes, Bijan is a better talented football player than Jahmyr Gibbs. It's a fact. Like, that's why he got drafted before. He's got the talent. He is one of the best athletes that we've seen in the NFL draft and NFL in so long.